How's it going, everybody? Here we are, 6 months later, and I'm finally doing episode 2. But I appreciate everybody's patience. I appreciate everybody's feedback from my first episode, and everybody that's been wanting to see a second one. So I'm going to do a 4-part series starting with this episode, and it's going to be 80 songs from the movies from the 80s. So I have 80 songs from different movies. Some will be from the same movie. It's not going to be 80 songs from 80 movies. So there are some rules. I always got to have rules when I do this kind of stuff. So it has to be written or recorded specifically for that film. If it's pre-existing, it could not have been like already available to the public. If it's a cover of a song, that works, but it has to be for that specific movie. It has to be in the movie. It can't just be like on the soundtrack. Like, for instance, you can see I got the Batman soundtrack back here. I wanted to put Bat Dance on this list. Bat Dance is not in the Batman movie. I love that song, but it's not in the movie, so it can't go on the list. There's actually only 3 songs that were in the movie from the soundtrack. So there's some rules. There might be some slight exceptions to that rule. Maybe even the first song that's on the list might be an exception to that rule, but yeah, that's essentially what I'm saying. So like, if you say, well, what about this song was in this movie? You know, like In Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel was in Say Anything. And that was a big deal for that song. But that song already existed for 3 years. It was on his album So that came out in 86. And then they used it in that movie in a really important part of the film, but it's not from that movie. So, yeah, so that's how I'm rolling, is it's got to be from the movie, either written and recorded for, or if it's pre-existing, and there'll be a song or two maybe on this first part of the list that I can give you an example of that from. So I got 80 songs. I'm going to cut it into 4 sections of 20. And then we're going to go in order by year. We're not going to go in order by release within the year. I thought about doing that, but I don't want to do that much research. So it's going to be 80 through 89. And so yeah, that's going to be this series. So we're going to start off right now. The first song is Queen doing Flash from Flash Gordon. So Flash Gordon was this movie from 1980. Cheesy but fun. Some recognizable faces in that movie. Probably Timothy Dalton is probably going to be the most recognized person in that. He went on to play James Bond in the late 80s, and he's done a bunch of other stuff. The main Hawkman was Brian Blessed, who's done a bunch of like character acting, but he voiced Boss Ness in Phantom Menace. So he's been around doing a lot of stuff over the years. But yeah, Queen was commissioned to write the soundtrack for this film. And so, like I said, exception to the rule to a certain degree. So this track is the single version that you're probably all very familiar with. It's a bum, 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 flash. Ah! Now that part is in the movie. It's actually the part of the opening movie, but the single version is a rearrangement of that. And it has like stuff from the movie. It's got lines from the movie. My favorite one in the song is probably where you hear the female bad guy going, "Send out robot Ajax to bring back his body." I love that kind of stuff. It's a kind of a cheesy tune, but it's a super fun tune. Yeah, but that kicks off our first song. Next song is going to be 9 to 5 from Dolly Parton, from the movie 9 to 5. So I'm not sure. I didn't really do this research, but this might have been Dolly's first movie. This is not a country song. It is a pop song, which proves that, you know, she's got crossover appeal, and she's got other tunes like that with, like Here You Come Again, and Islands in the Stream with Kenny Rogers. But it's a fun song. It's completely talks about the movie. But yeah, it's a cool song. Big hit for her. So the next tune is from the king of the soundtracks from the 80s. This might be the first song that he did for a movie. But it's Kenny Loggins, and it's I'm All Right from Caddyshack. It's a great song, super fun. If you listen to it and you've never noticed this, Eddie Money sings a line in the song. He was in the studio next door when they were recording I'm All Right, and he came in and he sang a line on the tune. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Kenny's first foray into to doing songs for movies, and he'll definitely pop up on this list quite a bit as we go through it. But I've always super fun song. Next song is Magic by Olivia Newton-John from the Xanadu soundtrack. Electra Light Orchestra had some tunes on there and some other artists. But this is such a great song, perfect roller skating song. And probably my favorite Olivia Newton-John tune. She was definitely one of my first crushes as a kid, seeing her in Grease. And but this song's great. So if you haven't listened to that in a while, check it out. So those are all from 1980. So we're going to roll into 1981 now, and we're going to have my guy, Sammy Hagar, with Heavy Metal. Now, there's two different versions of this song. There is the version that he recorded for the soundtrack for the Heavy Metal film. And then he did another recording, which ended up on Standing Hampton. So, I mean, both of those songs are legit, but if you wanted to listen to the version that he did specifically for the movie, it's practically the same. The arrangement's just a little bit different. And Sam does quite a few songs on movie soundtracks in the 80s, so you're going to see him pop up a couple more times on this list. The next tune is Arthur's Theme, Best That You Can Do, from Christopher Cross from the movie Arthur. This is just a great pop song. He co-wrote it with Burt Bacharach and Carol Bayer Sayer. He wrote the music, and those guys wrote the lyrics. And just it's an enduring tune. And it also won the Oscar for Best Original Song that year. So, and I saw Christopher Cross this summer, and he played this song. He had a 9-song set, and of course he played this song. It was really cool. All right, so now that was 81. I only had 2 songs in 81. So now we got to 1982. This is the best song ever written for a movie ever. And y'all can thank Queen for that, because Sylvester Stallone wanted to use Another One Bites the Dust in Rocky III. And Queen's like, nah. So Sly had heard this tune called Poor Man's Son from a band called Survivor. So he called up the guys in Survivor, Jim Pitterick and Frankie Sullivan, who were the leaders and the main songwriters. And he sent them a rough cut of Rocky III. And they wrote this song while watching the rough cut. And the dun, 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 all that comes from like the boxing hits within the film when they're seeing that. And of course they get, the title of the song for when he's, when Apollo's yelling at him that he doesn't have the eye of the tiger anymore. So, but yeah, everybody loves that song. I can't imagine anybody not digging Eye of the Tiger. And one thing that I noticed that's really weird, because I've had this record for a long time, the cover of that album, The Eye of the Tiger, is a tiger. But if you look in the eyes, the pupils are the band, is the Survivor band in the eyes. So I thought that was pretty cool. And for whatever reason, I just never noticed it until like about a year ago. Okay, so we got Eye of the Tiger. Next song is Somebody's Baby from Jackson Browne from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was a big movie in 1982. And that's probably my favorite Jackson Browne song. It's such a great song. It's a little funky. It's poppy. It's a great vocal from him. That soundtrack had a bunch of great songs on it. Sammy Hagar's on it too, and Don Felder from the Eagles. But yeah, I love that song. So I got that tune on the list. We got Up Where We Belong from Joe Cocker and Jennifer Warnes, and that's from An Officer and a Gentleman. Now, the weird thing about this song is, like, the main phrasing of the song is used as like the score throughout the film. And then the song is played at the end of the movie during the credits, but it's a different recording than what was released. So technically it still falls within the rules, because I don't think that other version has ever been released. You can tell that it's not the same version because like their vocals are very different, and the arrangement of the song is different. But I've always thought that was a great song. And I think that song won an Academy Award too. I'm not 100%, but I think that it did. Next up, we've got a tune called Megaforce from a band called 707 from a movie called Megaforce, which is just this super cheesy action movie from the 80s, like 1982. And I remember seeing, when I was a kid, in comics, like advertisements for this movie, and I was like, when is this movie coming out? And I think its theatrical run was dead and gone, and I don't think I even saw it until about a few years ago when I listened to it for a podcast. Trying to think of the guy that starred in this movie, Barry Bostwick, who was he was in Rocky Horror Picture Show, and then he was on Spin City with Michael J. Fox. So, and he plays like the lead dude, and he's got like this like weird pseudo Chuck Norris thing going on with all these like extravagant gadgets and like motorcycles and stuff. It's silly, but it's a cool song. And the song was reworked with some different lyrics and re-recorded by Ace Frehley with his Frehley's Comet Band in 1987. That track, it's the same song. They just changed some of the lyrics. And yeah, it's on Ace's album Frehley's Comet. And when we know, Ace just passed away this last week, and all these cats are passing away. I mean, it's kind of weird when you see like the bass player from Limp Bizkit's only 48 and he just passed away. D'Angelo passed away. So, you just you never know when some of these cats are going to be gone, and that's, I go to a lot of shows, and I've been trying to go to some of these guys that I've never seen before, and some of these older cats, so that I can get the chance to see them. So so the next song is from probably my favorite singer when I was a kid, and that's Kenny Rogers. and it's a tune called Love Will Turn You Around. It's from a film he did called Six Pack, where he is a race car driver, and he ends up like more or less like adopting these six kids that are brothers and sisters, and their parents are gone and stuff. And it's two of the kids, one of them is a young Diane Lane, and then the other one is a young Anthony Michael Hall, like before Vacation and all that other stuff that he did. But it's a great song. Not really a country song. I mean, it kind of like rests in between country and pop, but I would say it's more of a pop song than it really is a country song. So then, and that completes 1982. So now we're going to go on to 1983. And 1983, we got Holiday Road from Lindsey Buckingham, who everybody knows is, members of the 1970s version of Fleetwood Mac, Rumors and Tusk and all that. But he had this tune called Holiday Road that they put in there, and that was probably his biggest solo track, I'd say. And I don't even think it was available on any of his records for the longest time. I think he had a greatest hits come out and they stuck it on that, but I think previous to that, it was only available like as a single, which at that point would have been like a 45. I don't think it ended up on anything else before like a greatest hits record. Next, we've got two songs from the same movie. We've got Maniac by Michael Sembello, which is, I've always thought was a really cool song. Kind of this, poppy dance tune with like these kind of like Casio keyboard sounding effects and stuff, and a kind of a cool guitar solo in it. He actually wrote this song originally the idea was for a horror movie, and that's why it's called Maniac. But then they changed some of the lyrics so that it would fit the dance theme of Flashdance. And then of course the other song from that movie is Flashdance What a Feeling by Irene Cara, which was a huge hit for her. And she had a couple other hits, but that was probably definitely her biggest one. And that movie was huge when I was a kid, but I didn't see it until probably about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So here comes one of our quote unquote exceptions. So we've got a tune on here called Ask the Lonely by Journey. This is from a soundtrack from a movie called Two of a Kind, which came out in 1983, and it was a reunion movie for Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta, which did not do well. I'm sure everybody thought it was like, we're putting these guys back together. We're going to, it's going to be Grease all over again. People are going to love it, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it didn't do anything. This song was successful off of the soundtrack. Now, this tune was recorded for their album called Frontiers, along with another song called, let's see, what is this? I'm sorry. This is Ask the Lonely. The other tune is Only the Young. That song also ends up on a soundtrack in the 80s. But those two tunes were recorded for that, and then they got dropped for another couple of songs. That's a great song. It's still in their set list to this day. Journey still plays it all the time. Cool song. Glad that it ended up, seeing the light of day. And actually, that song and the other song I was talking about were on their original greatest hits back in 1988. So that was, of course you get all their great Journey songs, but a couple of tunes that you don't have. So now we're going to have another couple of songs from the same movie and the same artist. So we're going to have On the Dark Side from Eddie and the Cruisers, which as far as I'm concerned, like right there, as far as I'm concerned, like the best rock and roll movie ever made. Just like, the mythos of what rock and roll is and how it can like put people against each other and how the truth doesn't come out until years later, all that kind of stuff. But the music in it is great. It's by the John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. They did all the music on the soundtrack, the original songs. There's a couple of covers. But then, of course, the band, like the actors in the movie, are miming and lip syncing to that music. So yeah, you've got On the Dark Side, which is just a great song. It's one of those songs that's on my list that I have of songs that Elvis would have covered if he had lived like another 15 or 20 years. He would have definitely been doing that in his set, without a doubt. And then the next song is Tender Years, which is also from that song, from that movie, and the same artist. The sax player in that movie, his name's escaping me. Michael Tunes, I think, was his nickname, but I can't remember what his last name was. But in the movie, the saxophone player is the saxophone player from the Beaver Brown Band. So he's like really the only real musician that's in the film and is playing, you know. But I wish I could remember that cast's name. It just completely escapes me. Next, we've got Heaven, which is by Bryan Adams, from a tune called A Night in Heaven, which that's going to be another movie that you don't know. But you know the tune Heaven. That was one of his first big hits. And speaking of Journey, Steve Smith, who was the drummer for Journey at the time, plays on that track. That's why it kind of maybe has that kind of like Open Arms, Faithfully kind of drum sound to it. He knew Brian was the opening act for the Escape Tour, which was their big album that had, you know, Don't Stop Believin' and Open Arms and all those tunes. So he knew him, and the drummer couldn't make the session or something to that effect. So they called up Steve, who was in town, and he came in and he did the session with them. So the next two tunes are going to be number 19 and number 20 on this list. And they're from the same movie, same artist. We're in 1984. Man, when 84 hits, we're chugging. We're going to have, 84, 85, 86, 87. Like, all those years are going to be just big chunks of tunes. But this was probably the biggest, almost one of the biggest movies of that year. I can't remember what else might have been bigger than that movie and the soundtrack, but it's When Doves Cry from Prince and the Revolution, which supposedly he wrote like in one night, which doesn't surprise me from Prince. Like, they had like this montage that they were looking at in dailies or something like that, and the director says to him, "I need a song for that." And he brought him When Doves Cry the next day. And it's notorious for not having any bass guitar on it. Apparently he'd recorded a version of it with bass and he didn't like how it sounded, so he just took the bass off. And then the last tune on the list for this episode is Let's Go Crazy, also from Purple Rain, from Prince and the Revolution. This solidified the fact to me that Prince was a guitar hero. This song is just killer. It's a great riff, killer solo. He's obviously channeling Hendrix, but he's just doing his thing, man. And, I'm a huge Prince fan. So and that's like, I got into him on this previous record, which was 1999. But when this came out, everybody was like, Prince, and that became the whole Prince versus Michael Jackson thing, But yeah, Prince is just fantastic, and he'll show up on the list again. So yeah, there's your first 20 songs of 80 songs from movies from the 80s. Hope you enjoyed that. We're just going to wrap it up with a couple of things here that I'm going to talk about real quick. We've got a comic book series here that came out. They did a second run, or I guess like a follow-up to Robin and Batman, but this is with Jason Todd. Jason Todd is the second Robin. So you had Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson in the 80s decided he didn't want to be Robin anymore, so he became Nightwing. And then the first person to take over being Robin was Jason Todd. So, and Jason Todd is famous for being the Robin that got killed in the comic books in 1989, I think. They did a phone-in vote. They were doing the story called Death in the Family, and it's like, you get to decide whether Robin lives or dies. And his character died with like 1,000 votes between yes and no. But of course, you know, it's comic books, and we used to say that the only people that stay dead are Bucky and Uncle Ben. Well, we know that Bucky's not dead anymore, so at this point, it's only Uncle Ben. So, but, you know, years later, weird stuff happens, and Jason Todd is brought back to life, and he becomes a character called the Red Hood, which is actually what the Joker called himself before. But if you know anything about that history, it kind of works because it was the Joker that killed Robin. So, but this is like a reimagining of his early years being Robin. Kind of like it's a follow-up to the other one with Dick. And then Tim Drake is the third Robin. And I'm hoping that they do a 3-issue thing with him as well. So this is a 3-issue. It's already out. I'm kind of hoping that they'll do a collected series like they did with the other one. I'm sure they will. With the first one was a really cool, nice hardback cover with all 3 issues in it. So I'm hoping that they'll do that. And I wouldn't doubt if they'll probably do a Tim Drake follow-up. He's the third Robin, so... and the other recommendation I wanted to give was this really cool movie that my buddy Reese and I went and saw at the beginning of the month called Good Boy. It's a horror movie, like a haunted house movie, completely from the perspective of this guy's dog. And it's really cool. This guy's a first-time director. I should have wrote down his name. I didn't. But it took him like 4 years to make this film with his dog. At the end of the film, there's a really cool vignette about making of it and how he worked with his dog and what they did and all that kind of stuff. And that's going to be streaming starting this week on the 24th, which is Friday. It's going to be on Prime and Apple, Fandango at Home, and YouTube. And I think probably Shudder, because it was Shudder that bought it at South by Southwest earlier this year, and they distributed it like in theaters and stuff. So I'm thinking that it'll probably be on there, but I'm not 100% about that. And also, if you go to look for this, there is a film called Good Boy from like 2022 that looks to be some kind of like dog-oriented horror movie, but that's not the one you want to watch. It's from 2005 if you decide to see that. So... you know, it's the spooky season, and it's an easy watch. It's only 113 minutes. No, I'm sorry, it's not 113 minutes. That's longer than a short watch. It's an hour and 13 minutes. But it's really good. I recommend you checking it out. If you enjoy, you know, horror movies, you know, it's not like super scary, but there's some really cool stuff in it if you enjoy that kind of stuff. So, well, once again, I appreciate everybody's patience. I know it's been a while since I put a video up. I'm going to try and obviously make this more consistent, hopefully once a week. So probably like next Monday or Tuesday, you'll see the follow-up, which will be the next 20 songs from the 80s, from movies from the 80s. All right, guys, thanks a lot. We'll see you later.